What's good, everybody? I'm Winston A. Marshall, aka the Swaggy Blurred, and this is my Secret Invasion Episode 2 spoiler review, man. I know it's a little bit late. Part of that has to do with the fact that, I watched 1 and 2 a while ago, and there was a lot going on where the Secret Invasion videos weren't doing super hot, but I've had a number of requests, at least over on Capes and Cows with Christian and Coy, for coverage on Secret Invasion. So I'm going to do it myself. Whether or not Christian and Coy actually still cover the show would be interesting, but we all three of us agree that it's a good show. There's just, it's just not as much hype, I guess, because of the early controversy, and it does seem like people have a little bit of fatigue, not just on superhero movies and stuff like that, but a lot of the Disney Plus and MCU shows. I feel like a lot of people are kind of feeling some way or the other. But I told you I was going to do this, and I'm going to do the best that I can to give you a straight up reaction very quickly come Wednesday. For those that know about my broken leg, I have my second surgery next Monday. So I have a lot of doctor's appointments this coming week. A lot of going to bed early, all that good stuff. But before we jump into it, man, again, if this is your first time here on the channel, please be sure to go down and hit that subscribe button, man, hit the notification bell, and make sure you get all of the, you get hit up for every video that I'm putting out, man, reviews, comedy stuff, the Breakfast AM news. I've been, I recut them into shorts since it has to be 60 seconds. So those are releasing over time too, if you want to get some funny jokes in from the news and stuff like that, man. But let's get into it. Episode 2 of Secret Invasion jumps right in back in 97. And you see Fury with Talos. He is convincing the Skrulls that are there, the refugees that are there, that if you are able to help me, if you help me keep the world safe and whatnot, I'm going to do everything in my power to get you your own home. We're going to help you do that. And as that happens, we then get a cut to present day with Maria Hill is officially dead. And Fury just trying to get out of the country. He's immediately thrown into a van. So is one of the Skrulls that was a terrorist. Turns out it was Talos that grabbed him so he could get away without getting arrested by the Russian military. And as they're riding a train, Fury tells this really interesting story. And this is what I actually really love about this show. There's a lot of really great writing. Little nice anchored moments. So there's Fury tells a story about being with his mom in the South and how she used to play a game called Tell Me Something I Don't Know. And Fury tells a story about how there's this woman named Susie, and her mom, his mom was like, tell me something I don't know about you and Susie. And he was like, oh, we saw a polka dot bullfrog. And his mom just was like, mm-hmm. And it was a good way to tell if somebody was lying to you. And so Fury asked Talos, tell me something I don't know about the Skrulls on Earth. And ultimately, he gets the information out that there are 1 million Skrulls on Earth, that Talos actually sent a call out to all of the ones that fled war to come to Earth, because I guess they were being killed by the Kree Empire or wherever they were. And Fury's pissed. You let 1 million fucking Skrulls come to Earth? Like, he brings up the fact that humans barely get along with each other. They're not going to get along with 1 million refugees. There's going to be somebody who is going to absolutely hate them for who they are and try and persecute and kill them. While this is happening, Gravik is continuing his plans. You see him talking to some scientists, and it looks like they're putting stuff up. And there's a quick screenshot of 3 heroes or 3 supernatural beings, superpowered beings: Groot, Cull Obsidian, and then the Extremis formula that was used in Iron Man 3. And so you see that, and you already start to get the inklings of, ooh, oh no, they're about to make a super Skrull. And like just kind of immediately off top, because they said, Gravik even says this is meant to like help us evolve and whatnot. So when you see that, and before I jump forward more into the story, man, I think one of the things that was really interesting, for those that are not familiar with the original Super Skrull, the first Skrull that was made, they were imbued with the powers of the Fantastic Four. So Mr. Fantastic's elasticity, Visible Woman's like shields and invisibility, Johnny's, Human Torch's flame and flight, and then the Thing's durability and strength. Well, since we haven't met the Fantastic Four yet, they don't exist in the MCU yet, What I found very interesting is that, at least with Groot, Cull Obsidian, and Extremis, those are three powers that sort of emulate the Fantastic Four. So Groot, with his ability to kind of grow his limbs out and stretch out, is very similar to Mr. Fantastic. Cull Obsidian is the massive brute from Infinity War and Endgame, so that's the strength and durability of the Thing. And then Extremis, remember, was like kind of the, even though it had regeneration in there, it was that kind of fire abilities and explosion abilities, and so you'll see that kind of replace some of those powers. So that's very interesting and a wise choice to keep to the core of the Super Skrulls abilities, but to not have to go into the Fantastic Four quite yet. So that's just a fun little thing that I picked up on that I'm sure you guys have already talked about for 2 weeks now. But I think probably the most interesting part of this entire episode is we get to see James Rhodes, Rhodey, is called to essentially a security council with the UN, and he's having to explain why 2 Americans were in Russia and bombing Russia, because this looks like the beginning of World War III. The U.S. has to be held accountable, but Rhodey keeps dropping just some cool Rhodey kind of almost Iron Man-esque, like Tony Stark-esque like tactics where they're like, are you going to admit that 2 Americans, including, Colonel Fury, were in Russia bombing? And he goes, allegedly, the Americans were there, but we don't trust Russian surveillance anyway, so it really could have been anything. And he keeps shutting him down, and there's even a moment where Slovakia keeps throwing him side eyes, and he goes, Slovakia got one more time to look at me sideways, and then I'm going to hop in a suit and carpet bomb the fuck out of him, which is like kind of shitty, but I get it. I totally get it. But all that being said, man, you have that go down, and then Fury gives Rhodey a call, and they sit down for a meet. And Fury's just like, hey, man, this is what's going. Like, Rhodey's like, how dare you do this shit? You done put me in some shit. And Fury was like, yeah, I get it, but look, I need your help, man. You need the Skrulls are here. They're going crazy. Like, do you trust your detail? And he's like, hey, man, all right, if that's the case, you need to come in, but like, I'm not just gonna fight your war. And Fury and Rhodey get into this talk, where Fury's like, hey, man, it took a lot for people that look like us to get into this position, and I did everything that I could to help you out, so help me out, brother. And he goes, well, here's the thing. It did take a lot for people like us to get in this position, and I'm not going to let you turn around and cost me and other people that look like us any sort of thing. So I'm going to tell you, as someone that looks like you, you're fired. And they're like, they sent you to fire me? He goes, no, I volunteered. You're done, Fury. So Fury is out in the cold. He's no longer with Sword, S.H.I.E.L.D., any part of the U.S. government. He's on his own to figure this out, man. And while all this is happening, the name of the Skrull that was captured, that was part of the terrorist plot, was Brogan. Brogan is being tortured by the Russians. They're not having any effect on him. So you end up with Olivia Colman's character. I cannot remember her name. Sonya Falsworth. That's her name. Agent Falsworth. She knows where this torture chamber is in a butcher shop. She goes in, gets them to leave. And then she first cuts off Brogan's finger to make sure he's a Skrull. Then hits him with this apparently cocktail via needle that sets his blood to boil. And this dude is flipping out. And she's able to get the information out about where the Skrulls, one of their hideouts is, all that kind of stuff, who's putting it up to it, and all that. But while that's happening, ultimately then you end up with Gravik and S.H.I.E.L.D. showing up to essentially rescue Brogan, and Sonya barely gets out. She gets out in time, but she barely gets out. And once Gravik realizes that Brogan had betrayed them, drives him out to the middle of nowhere, pops him one, and they've moved on. And again, like I mentioned before, this is around when you find out about the experimentation that was done by a scientist couple called the Daltons, who were also Skrulls. And this is where they have made these machines that can do this. But the final little twist that we get at the end of the episode is Fury ends up going home. He goes to his home. And while we're there, we meet a Skrull named Vara, who actually is his wife. and she's become Priscilla Fury. So that is where episode 2 ends. We find out that Nick Fury actually married a Skrull woman, man. So this was wild. This to me is where, when I said in my instant reaction that I really loved the show and they needed that second episode to kind of pick things up, because you get the bombing at the end of one and the death of Maria, but then it goes into this entire thing of essentially where we end up. And I forgot the one other thing that ended up happening at the in episode 2 that I didn't cover. Gravik essentially gets all of the Skrull leaders to come together, and they are placed everywhere. They are the FXN news host Chris Stearns, the UK Prime Minister Pamela Lawton. Like, they're all over in power positions all over the world, and they agree. The Skrull Council agrees to make Gravik the General High Commander of the Skrull Army here, and so they are essentially giving the thumbs up for this war that the Skrulls are going to wage on the humans to invade. The only dissent is from Shirley Sager, and that's pretty much it. She's like, I'm not standing for this. And Gravik's like, I respect it, and if I had more of yous, we probably would have won the war, which is crazy because, again, Gravik was a kid, not by maybe Skrull standards, but at least by ours. He was a much younger, smaller Skrull. He looked like he was a child. So that was the last little part that we now know, is that Gravik is the supreme general of the Skrull army. So getting through this entire episode, especially because of that Rhodey and Nick scene, man, I have to give this episode a solid 9. I really, really enjoyed this. It did a great job of setting up the conflict even more, letting us know the dangers that are coming, and then left with twist after twist. To know that Nick is, married to a Skrull woman. To know that we have got the machine capable of making super Skrulls, that they will now have superpowers in order to do this. All of this. And on top of that, they did it because there was even a conversation of, what if the Avengers come back? And Gravik's like, I got that. Don't worry about that. So I really loved this episode. This is what made it for me when I watched my screening way back when. But I'm curious what y'all think, man, because, again, it's not that people haven't been saying how good Secret Invasion is. It just hasn't really been on the tip of people's tongues. It hasn't been talked about a lot, which kind of bums me out a little bit. But like I said, I'm going to be here for the rest of them. If you're seeing this tomorrow, my episode 3 of Secret Invasion will be out. And then after that, again, doctor's appointments willing, I will be doing these the next day after they release, the Wednesday that they come out. So you can have that review as well. But I want to know what you think, man. Hit me in the comics. Hit me in the comments. And let me know what you thought about episode 2, called Promises. That was the name of it. And what you think, where you think this is all gonna go, man. We obviously get a little more in the next episode, but I'm just so curious. If you're loving Secret Invasion, if you've been off it already, what's going on in your mind, man? So again, if you haven't, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you are made aware of any time I'm posting some new stuff. Again, I do comedy and reviews on here, so a little bit of both. The Breakfast AM news stuff is popping off. And be sure to follow me at the Swaggy Blurred on all social media, man. If you want to get the Breakfast AM news stuff as it happens, that I do on my TikTok and Instagram feeds. Those are when they initially drop, and then I bring it over here a little bit later. So yeah. That's pretty much everything else. So I got much love for you. I will see y'all tomorrow with episode 3. Until then, peace.